Moving second, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed or abstaining, motion carries. Call the public meeting to order. Please stand for the second pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll have our presentation by our rep from Drescher and Malecki.
My name is Erica Handley. I am the senior manager on this year's audit of the school district. I'm from Drescher and Malecki. Luke Malecki serves as the engagement partner who wasn't able to be here tonight, but his information is on the last slide of the presentation that you have in front of you. I'll briefly go through the slide. If there are any questions, please let me know, or feel free to use that contact information on the last slide. If any questions come to you as you have a chance to review the drafts that are also in front of you. Of our audit, we are hired first and foremost as your external auditors to provide an opinion on your basic financial statement. So we're provided by the district with the books and records for the year from the business office. We use those books and records to compile your financial statements and prepare an opinion on the financial statements. The document that's in front of you right now is in draft form, but we do anticipate moving forward with the opinion that is in it. That is an unmodified opinion, a clean opinion. That's the best that you can do from an audit standpoint. We also issue a management letter to go along with the basic financial statements. This is a formal letter that contains any best practices, any items that we want to bring to your attention, any areas of concern. The only item that is in that management letter this year is a listing of future governmental accounting standards board statements. So that's more of a piece of information for you to be aware of in the coming years, what will affect your financial statements, and will assist the district in implementing those as they become relevant. We also issue an auditor communication letter. This is a requirement of us that it has a certain required details in it. So within that letter, it includes what our responsibility is as your auditors, which is to prepare to provide that opinion based on a set of tests that we do. Our responsibility is to make those tests so that we can provide that opinion and ensure that the financial statements can be reasonably relied upon. Also within your auditor communication letter, we outline certain significant accounting policies of the district, estimates that are utilized to develop your financial statements, which is routine. We also outline what our independence is, which is probably the most important thing from an external audit perspective. Everyone in our firm is independent of the district, so you can be assured that we are looking at those records from an objective standpoint. The last item that we issue is an extra classroom activities report. Your extra classroom activities are the clubs that are student run. So we do a series of tests over the cash receipts, the cash disbursements, and the cash balances in those clubs, and offer a report on those. Moving on to the next slide in the presentation, this is a 5-year trend of the general fund revenues versus expenditures. So the revenues are the blue line and the expenditures are the red line. For the year ending June 30th, 2022, you can see that that top line was the revenues. That was $75.8 million in revenues in the general fund, compared to the expenditures of $72.1 million in the general fund. The difference there was a $3,732,000 increase to general fund balance for the year ended June 30th, 2022. That brings your ending general fund balance to $34.9 million in the general fund. So again, that was an increase of about $3.7 million in your general fund. Compared to the prior year, revenues increased about $1.5 million. That's essentially related to a favorable basic aid formula, along with additional federal aid that was received related to the CARES Act. On the expenditure side of things, there was a $1.8 million increase in expenditures. A lot of that can be contributed to bringing operations back to normal after COVID. A large amount of that was in instructional expenditures primarily related to salaries and filling some of those positions. Bringing it to the next slide, this presents a 5-year trend of the general fund balance. For your information, this does include the Tuscarora School within these totals. The top line here, the top bar, I should say, is your restricted fund balance, and the bottom section of that graph is your unrestricted fund balance. So restricted fund balance at year end was about $28 million. That compares to the prior year where your restricted fund balance was $18 million. That is about a $10 million increase, which can be directly attributed to the new capital reserve, the $10 million capital reserve that was fully funded. So there was some spending of other reserves, increases of other reserves, but essentially that $10 million was 1-for-1 for that new capital reserve. So at June 30th, 2022, all of your capital reserves, your vehicle reserves, transportation reserves have been fully funded. The bottom section, your unrestricted fund balance, was $6.65 million. And I will get into that in a few slides about what actually comprises that balance. The next slide is more for your information. This is the same chart that we looked at before, except it pulls out your Tuscarora funds. So that Tuscarora fund is presented on your financial statements combined with your general fund. This slide pulls out the Tuscarora fund. The total fund balance of the Tuscarora fund at June 30th, 2022 was a deficit fund balance of about $266,000. That is directly related to the timing of the state reimbursements. So because there has to be some money fronted before that the money comes in from the state, it is in a deficit position. It's pretty routine. As we all know, it has been much larger in the past based on the timing of those reimbursements. So in fact, the receivable that's owed from the state at year end was about $400,000, so higher than that deficit position, which means that had the payments come in timely, you would be in a positive fund balance position. So nothing to be concerned about there. It just kind of outlines the timing and the delay in getting some of that money from the state. The next slide, as I mentioned, I would break down the details of what comprised your unrestricted fund balance in the general fund. So unrestricted fund balance is comprised of 2 categories. There's an assigned fund balance and an unassigned fund balance. That top section is your assigned fund balance. You can see that it decreased pretty significantly from the prior year, where it was at a balance of $9.6 million to the current year, where it's a balance of about $3.4 million. That is directly attributable to an assignment that was in the prior year assigned for capital projects. That was an earmarking of management to use funds to further increase the capital reserves. So at year end, there was not a legal capital reserve established that the money could be transferred into. Once that was established, the funds moved from that assigned or that earmarked category to the actual restriction, which is a legal restriction. So that's attributed, what attributes to the decrease in your assigned fund balance. The blue section, the bottom section, is your unassigned fund balance. That's about $3.1 million at year end. And moving on to the last slide, this brings in where your fund balances are compared to the requirements of section 1318 of real property tax law limits, which says that the school district can only have 4% of unassigned fund balance, and that percentage is compared to what your next year's budgeted appropriations are. So you can see that the district at year end is coming in higher than that percentage. It's at 4.6%. That is due to there being some additional assignments similar to what I mentioned before, where the district has earmarked about $500,000 of funds that will be used to fund a future reserve. However, that reserve had not been legally adopted or voted on at year end. So due to this, the financial statements do include, similar to last year, a significant deficiency in compliance. That's a requirement because this is a law, a New York state law. However, just something to note, it's not a significant deficiency in your accounting or your internal controls. It is just a significant deficiency compared to the law that's imposed. Finally, that last slide, as I mentioned, has our contact information on it. Should you have any questions, I'm happy to take those now, or please feel free to reach out as they come up.
One quick comment on that last piece that you were talking about, so that everybody understands. And I know we've talked about this here in public session many, many times. As a district, our cash flow is always, and when I say cash flow, the amount of money that we have on a daily basis to spend, not our restricted reserves. Our cash flow is always something that we're concerned with. And it's because we have so many different places that we have to pay out ahead of time because money doesn't come in until after we've spent it. A great example, of course, always is with the Tuscarora School. So carrying some additional fund balance into a school year is something that at the beginning of this school year was really important because some may not understand this, the federal stimulus funds that are coming into districts, much of that money is a reimbursement. So you don't just get that lump sum and then you can spend it down. That would be great for cash flow. It's not, doesn't happen that way. Okay, we have to put in for a reimbursement. So you have all of these extra credit recoveries and opportunities for students that we're providing, but it has to come from our general cash flow from our general fund to begin with, and then we get reimbursed. So it's really made it kind of difficult. And that $500,000 that you were talking about, we've already talked about here, and the board has agreed to move that into a fund in May once a fund is established for the next capital reserve, knowing full well that the capital reserve funds that we put aside are really going to be eaten up with the capital project that we're proposing and that we're putting out to the voters on November 29th.
Thank you to everyone for your help in the business office as well as any other departments and individuals that came in contact with of everyone that we made inquiries of. So we appreciate the opportunity to work for the district.
All right, residents' comments. Do we have anyone sign up? Okay. All right, call for motion to accept the consensus agenda as submitted.
Make a motion.
All right, we're going to separate number 6. Anything else to discuss and separate? All right, all those in favor of accepting items 1 through 5 and 7 and 8, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstaining. Motion carries. For item 6, that it's a resolution in the Niagara Wheatfield Central School District. That be it resolved that the Board of Education, Niagara Wheatfield Central School District in the County of Niagara, New York, as follows. A special district meeting of the qualified voters of Niagara Wheatfield Central School District in the County of Niagara, New York, the district shall be held within the district on Tuesday, November 29th, 2022 at 12:00 p.m. prevailing time at the Adult Learning Center, Niagara Wheatfield Senior High School, 2292 Saunders Settlement Road, Town of Lewiston, New York. In said district is provided in the notice calling a special district meeting hereafter prescribed. The voting at such special districts shall be by ballot as provided by the education law, and the poll shall remain open from 12:00 p.m. to 8 p.m. Prevailing time on said day, and as much longer as may be needed to enable the voters then present to cast their votes. The business to be acted upon at said special district meeting shall be as stated in the notice thereof, and the district clerk is hereby authorized and directed to cause the notice of the special district meeting to be published in the Niagara Gazette and the Buffalo Business First, 2 newspapers having a general circulation within the district. Such publications to be made 4 times in such newspapers within the 7-week period next preceding such special district meeting. The first publication to be at least 45 days prior to the date of said special district meeting. I now call for the clerk to have the roll call vote.
Yes.
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 All right, very good. Personnel items, I call for a motion to accept the personnel report as submitted. I'll second it. Any item to separate or to be discussed? All right, then, all those in favor of accepting the personnel report, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstaining, motion carries. All right, Capital Project Committee,
Yeah, we just talked about the bond, of course, we voted on tonight. We're looking at having a meeting to go over the particulars of the project. It's 17th at 4 o'clock, Monday. And that's pretty much what we got going.
And then there'll be a follow-up presentation following that, the 17th, here at the board meeting on the 19th
Yeah.
Okay.
Right,
by Troutman.
it'll be the presentation.
Yeah.
okay. All right, is there anything additional from the audit committee from we have right now? Okay. All right, policy committee. We have the first reading of the following policies. Policy 1510, regular board meeting, meetings and rules, quorum and parliamentary procedure. Policy, I gotta zoom in, I can't read that. Policy 1530, minutes. Policy 3420, non-discrimination and anti-harassment in the district. Policy 3421, Title IX and sex discrimination. Policy 7540, suicide. Policy 8110, curriculum development, resources and evaluation. Policy 8320, textbooks, library materials, and other instructional materials. Policy 8330, objection to instructional materials and controversial issues. And policy 8340, instructional materials and non-public school students. All right, since it's coming from a standing committee, there does not need to be a motion to accept. Any discussion of any of the items? I know there's a lot there. I'll give you guys a minute. Yeah. You can picture it. All right, for the first reading then, I call for a vote. All those in favor of accepting the first reading of these policies, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Motion carries. All right, entry, educational contribution agreement, there's an informational item there. You want to say anything about that?
Yeah, if I could. This is not the first agreement that has to do with solar. However, it is the first one where our attorney who was involved negotiated some direct funds to our district. In all of those other cases, we're receiving funding from the pilot. However, there's a direct contribution. So when that does happen, we'll make sure that we share that with the board. So that was a good thing. What, do you remember the amount? $20,000. Okay. Thank you.
Ex officio student members report. Brandon?
Yeah, so homecoming was last week. It went pretty well. We lost our homecoming game. It was pretty bad. It was 26-6 against Frontier. But that game was an orange out for everybody, benefiting the Every Child Matters campaign. There was a $3 donation at the door to be donated to the Tuscarora Reservation. Native American dancers performed at halftime. So that was the game. All our after school events went great. Our dance, we sold about 700 tickets. There was a harvest theme. There was popcorn, donuts, apple cider, and like it was a fall theme. It was cool. Powder Puff, the seniors won 26-8. And then that was homecoming week. There's really nothing like to report about except that everything went well. We have a kickball tournament scheduled on November 10th. And then student council announced today that they're doing a student body Thanksgiving dinner sometime in November. So that's what we got coming up, and that was homecoming week. Thank you.
So not much going on.
Not anymore.
All right. Superintendent's report.
I do want to say that Braden had actually said to me before the game, he referred to the kickball tournament as Didn't you say what North Tennant wanted to call soccer, kickball? In the back in the day when Mr. Sable played, is that
Wow.
what you said?
Wow.
I thought, I'm
Wow.
sorry. I thought that's what I
Just to
heard you
let you
say.
know, they didn't teach humor in
And I
Tonawanda.
understand, I just opened up the floodgates. I understand.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna sit here and listen now.
Good job, Tenderfoot.
So, hiring, Mr. Stack, any updates?
Thank you. Stay from.
Here, let me turn mine off. You good?
That's good. Just a couple updates. We are still putting bits and pieces together with our staffing for the 22-23 school year, but we have updated our website and we're very thankful to have done that. Kind of worked through the progress in the last few days of putting up additional postings, and we're constantly refreshing those. So currently there's a few cleaners and food service helpers that are still here, as well as a few monitor cleaners. But we're in the process of bringing on a few new typists to the district, as well as hopefully some PCAs in the next round of board meetings. So thank you.
Thank you. Bob already talked about the capital project meetings. I want to thank everyone who came to the Eco Campus Revitalization Project. It was another great event. The weather was excellent. We did some cleanup. We put some wood chips up by the outdoor classroom, millings along the trail that in some spots that were still pretty low lying where water would collect. Those were a couple of the main activities, and then went through and Mr. Kramer and students went through and kind of fortified some of the trees. We had staff members there, some board representation, and it was a really nice day, a great day. We haven't set our one for the spring yet. We have a couple dates that were in between. We just want to make sure that the saplings that we get in are going to be in the week that we plan it. Obviously, that's important. So once we can confirm that, then we'll pick our date for the spring. Braden said last week was a busy week here at the high school with homecoming. I would say that, all the reports from the events were excellent. I was at the football game. The crowd, the high school crowd was fantastic. The Orange Out student section, I was saying to someone today, a few people today, that the Orange Out section was orange the entire game. I mean, I don't even think people left that section at halftime. It was really impressive, and so that's really fun for school spirit, and it says a lot about our students in the district. Also during last week, we were honored to have a guest from New York State Education Department. Our Commissioner Betty Rosa was in district last week. Her stop was at the Tuscarora Elementary School. If you remember last year, we pushed really hard for funding for the Tuscarora Elementary School capital project work. She came, she saw that work. She also went into both a language and culture class. So everybody knows one of the things that's happening statewide is an attempt to increase the pathways, improve the pathways for Native American language acquisition at the college level, so that individuals can go there, get certifications, and then come back and teach. It certainly isn't lost on me that the language of all the languages in our country, that's the hardest to get a certification for. And as a matter of fact, in New York State, there's only a permit for. There's no certification right now, is the language that was initially here in this nation. Interesting, isn't it? For about a decade, there's been a group in the Western New York area who's been pushing for this. I'm sure before that, I just know because that's whenever I was part of it in a prior district. It hasn't happened yet. They are attempting right now at the education department to really fast track this pathway. So hopefully that happens. It's really important to maintain the languages of our native peoples and other being all the groups, not just Tuscarora, but obviously Tuscarora is here in our backyard. So the food service program, there's no change is still in the universal feeding. There is certainly some movement at the state level now to include that in the next state budget. We'll see what happens there. We continue to push out in different ways information about the importance of families filling out the forms, okay? Because we have a couple of our schools that are always right around that percent mark of whether or not we move into everyone receiving free meals or not. So it's crucial that our families fill that out. And I usually have the food service last, but I missed one. We are moving toward, okay, having at our home varsity contest, our home varsity sports contest, if you're a middle school student, you're going to have to be there accompanied by a parent or guardian. Okay. We do not have the ability to supervise students who are not there to watch the game, who are running around, who are doing everything but being there to watch the game. So we had put this out prior to homecoming, hoping that it would, maybe improve the middle school, particularly middle school student behaviors. I was at the homecoming game. That wasn't the case. So we will be moving that direction. There'll be more information about when that'll start going out to the middle school families. Okay. That's all I have.
Any questions of superintendent's report? All right, moving on to reports to the board finance.
In front of you, you have the budget transfers that were approved back in June for meeting to close our books. They're all listed there and the explanations. If you have any questions, please feel free to give me a call.
Okay, any items for board discussion tonight? Any old business? New business? Public comments? No? Any board member comments? All right, a motion to adjourn.
I'll make
No motion to adjourn?
I'll make
Oh, we're just sitting here then the rest of the night.
Can't throw that at us quick.
Okay, motion to adjourn is moving second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed or abstaining, motion carries.